Presumptive nominee Joe Biden and Senator Bernie Sanders are now coming together for a joint unity task force. So now they say that it's going to be used to shape the Democratic Party policy and the party's agenda for 2020 and beyond. So before we get into what I think about this, uh, let me tell you about who's going to be in these task forces, right? So Bernie Sanders has picked some pretty good people. Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. You have Pramila Jayapal. Cortez, of course, will be on the environmental task force. You got Pramila Jayapal. You got Varshini Prakash, who's the co-founder of Sunrise Movement. So that's a really good pick. You also have for economics, Stephanie Kelton. So now she is known for her work on MMT. For healthcare, you've got Dr. Abdul El-Sayed. You got a lot of great picks, right, for these task forces, right? Now Biden has his own picks. You're not going to be surprised. Their establishment. You have John Kerry. You have Sono Shah, policy director for Pete Buttigieg. Then in his presidential campaign, you have, of course, Randy Weingarten, Christabel Alex, who's a Biden campaign advisor. And so, look, you've got their respective picks. Now, the Biden campaign said in a statement, the goal of this is to put together the most successful possible agenda for Democrats in 2020. Well, I don't know about that. Now, he also said that he wants to ensure the U.S. doesn't, quote, reset the clock back to a time before Donald Trump. Now, that's interesting because that's what Biden's entire campaign was about originally. So now the question is, did he actually learn from coronavirus, right, and the popularity of Bernie Sanders' campaign, him getting the second most amount of delegates in the race and winning some very important states at the beginning, while Biden and the rest of the establishment had floundered originally before Bloody Monday, which is when they all got together to back Joe Biden after South Carolina, and Jim Clyburn's endorsement. And so, I don't know. Did he learn? I don't know, man. I can't tell you that. But his rhetoric is starting to be a bit better. But that's all it is. It's his words without actions. And to be fair, he's not president yet, so he can't really do any of this stuff. But I don't know. I don't really have a lot of trust in that. But now, okay. To continue with this statement, he says, the United Party is key to defeating Donald Trump this November and moving our country forward through an unprecedented crisis. As we work towards our shared goals, it's especially critical that we not lose sight of the pressing issues facing Americans. So now there's 33 million people that are out of work, right? So we need a UBI for this crisis. And of course, until the basic economy goes back to being what it was before coronavirus hits. So it could be years that we need to recover, that we need to continue to pay Americans, either through unemployment benefits or the Heroes Fund, for example, that gets people, back on the payroll for their jobs, but has the government supplement them to pay. That's Pramila Jayapal's plan, of course, that unfortunately did not get put into the latest Democratic bill for coronavirus relief. So now there's other things. There's, of course, 27 million Americans that have lost their health care. They've lost their health insurance because they've lost their jobs. And so, I mean, those are just some of the crises facing Americans. You also have the global crisis, not just coronavirus, but you have the climate change. So we need a Green New Deal. We need something massive. And so, look, a lot of these people, right? These problems need to be addressed, and there are a lot of good people here that have great plans on this. Dr. Abdul El-Sayed, he's a huge proponent of single payer healthcare, right? Medicare for all. That's what he's been calling for. He ran for governor of Michigan. I supported him, voted him. I'd vote for him again, right? If I could. I really admire and respect the work. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, Green New Deal, right? She's been pushing that. And so I respect a lot of these people, and these are the people that Bernie Sanders picked to be in the task force. And I don't want to undermine their work, and I don't want to disrespect their work or dismiss it. But my problem here is that I think this is Unity Reform Commission 2.0. I mean, back in 2016, there's so many great progressives. Namiki Konst, wonderful progressive. I consider her like a friend of the show, right? They tried so hard to fundamentally change the DNC, right? To be more representative of progressive priorities. They worked so hard, only for the DNC and the establishment to shoot down basically every one of their proposals. Gone. So I don't want to minimize the work that they put into this, but the fact is that there was so much pushback in the establishment that none of this, basically none of the reforms got passed. So what was the point? Again, AOC, Jayapal, Sayed, I love these guys. I want them to be successful, and I appreciate their work. And I do believe they joined because they think that they can make a difference. And maybe I'm too cynical. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe this time they'll make a difference. Maybe they'll push Biden to the left. I don't know. I don't believe it though. I don't think that's going to happen. I just don't think that's going to happen. I don't see Biden's campaign moving a whole lot earnestly. I mean, sure, again, out there he's starting to sound a little bit more like Bernie, calling for some student loan debt cancellation and a $15 minimum wage. He's gone basically to Elizabeth Warren's plan on student loan debt cancellation, which of course is full of means testing and things like that. And he says, "Oh, that's great. Yeah, now we're totally going to get people under 45 by canceling a small part of their student loan debt and means testing the crap out of it." I mean, but that's what they do, right? But here's the thing: he's also quote unquote moved forward or progressed, right, on policy that is actually less progressive than what Hillary Clinton was offering back in 2016. Hillary Clinton wanted to lower the Medicare age to 55. Biden's big concession, lowering it to 60. Why don't we lower it to 0? Medicare for all now. I mean, that would make sense. But of course, we don't do that in this country. All right. Now, the task force will meet ahead of the DNC in August and present policy recommendations to both Biden and the DNC's platform committee. So now, again, those recommendations, I see them either being rejected or watered down. And I'm just keeping it real here, right? And by the way, even if the Biden campaign agrees with it, do you really trust him to follow through? I mean, if he wins, right? And that's kind of an if, as polling has him down in 15 states, some of which are key states for him to win. He's now being beaten by Trump. Disastrous, right? But even if he does win, do you really trust him to fight for those policies, considering how he has a history of lying greatly? I mean, lying when it doesn't really make sense to lie. I mean, he lied about visiting Mandela in jail in South Africa. He was nowhere near trying to visit Mandela in jail. And of course, if he was, he wouldn't be arrested. A complete flat out fabrication. Lying about going to HBCUs. And of course, constantly taking conservative positions. I mean, he governed. Look, the thing about Joe Biden is that he has always governed in the center, right? Wherever the center is, even if it's massively right wing, he still tries to get into the center of it. He is a true centrist, right? And that's not a good thing because he doesn't stake out a real position. Now, that does mean that he is capable of, for example, being on the right side of history at some point, because that happens to be where the quote unquote center is, right? But it's got to be like poll tested, and it's got to be like, oh, windsock. Here's what's not exactly populist, because we're going to stay away from populism, but it has to be acceptable within my group, within my sphere of influence, right? My donors have to be okay with this. My donors are fine with gay marriage, so I of course, I went progressive with gay marriage, even though Barack Obama wasn't openly with it. So I let that slip, right? And so I'll be on the right side. I'll support unions because guess what? We get a lot of donations from unions. So I'm going to, be in favor of that. So occasionally he lands himself on the right side of history. So would that happen now that coronavirus has completely changed the political calculation? I mean, that remains to be seen. I mean, a majority of Democrats, the massive majority of over 80%, support Medicare for all, a single payer healthcare system, even if it gets rid of private insurance, which is what a Medicare for all single payer system would actually do. So knowing that the base is massively in favor of it and that they're calling for massive change because we're in the middle of this pandemic, would that be enough to actually, hit Joe Biden's triangulation? Because that's what it is, right? He is the classic triangulation candidate. Would that be enough to get him on board? We don't know. We don't trust. And that is the big problem. And that's actually the huge problem with people under 45. Because we have independent media and we get told the truth about Joe Biden and where he stands on issues and what his past is. Whereas you don't see that on MSNBC. On MSNBC, CNN, they're like, oh, Joe Biden is electable. He's one of he's a longstanding congressman. And, look at that, vice president. But they don't talk about the stuff that he did in the past. The fact that he's ran several campaigns for president and had to and had to quit those campaigns because of scandal. Things like where he had plagiarized speeches and other people's policies and incorporated into his own. I mean, there's no trust here. There's no trust here. And so do I believe that these task forces are genuinely going to move him when I don't know who Joe Biden is? I don't know who he is. I don't know where he stands. All I know is what he's done and how he's governed. And that is not encouraging. And the lies that he was caught up in, not encouraging at all. And I'm sorry, but I'm totally cynical about this. And I think I'm right to be cynical. It doesn't mean I don't want to defeat Trump. I want to defeat Trump badly. I mean, this administration is an absolute disaster. And people are dying. 83,000 people have died as a result of coronavirus, thanks to the administration's feckless incompetence. So do I want Donald Trump? Of course not. Of course not. Now, I'm also not saying that I wouldn't vote for Biden, but I'm also saying that right now he's got to earn my vote. And I don't know how he's going to do that if I don't trust him. I'm in this conundrum where I can't trust the guy. And so anything that he says, I'm going to view with suspicion. So I don't know, man. Now, that said, I'm not going to shame you for voting for him. I'm not going to shame you for staying home, voting third party. I'm not going to do that. We're done with that. We're done with that, okay? We tried that in 2016. Did that work? No. Of course not. Of course not. So, understand where I'm at. It's a very difficult position to be in. Do I think these unity, task forces are going to accomplish anything? Probably not. Probably nothing concrete. And that sucks because I respect so many of the people who are serving on that. So I don't know. Now, look, one more thing here, and this is according to Vox. They said the task force was a large part of why Bernie Sanders formally endorsed Biden. So understand that Bernie Sanders and Joe Biden have this romance, right? They like each other. They respect each other. That's kind of different than the dynamic that happened in 2016, whereas Hillary Clinton despised Bernie Sanders for getting in the way of her coronation. So understand that maybe that I'm really trying. I'm trying hard, right? And maybe I shouldn't try that hard. Because if you have to stretch that hard to try to find some sort of light, then maybe you shouldn't be trying. Okay. And that's honestly the truth of it. but like they do have a respect for each other. That's why he believes Joe Biden, even though we don't. We don't have that relationship with Joe Biden. We don't know him, right? Bernie Sanders does. Or maybe he thinks he does, and he thinks, well, I can at least trust Joe Biden on this one, that he's going to try to honor this, and who knows, maybe he will, right? But I just don't believe it. I just don't trust it, and I don't trust him. Now that said, Bernie Sanders said that he wanted to guarantee his progressive vision would have a tangible impact on policy in a Biden administration. Now, Biden's got, he literally has everything to lose, right? He could very much lose this race, as I mentioned before. So far, on rhetoric, he's holding up his end of the bargain. You've heard him recently, right? Where he's talking about, $15 minimum wage or living wage, and we're going to do these more progressive policy proposals, and we're going to have the most progressive administration that we've ever had. Which, of course, not nearly progressive as Bernie Sanders would be. But the reason that he's doing this, at least he's cognizant enough to understand that he needs progressive voters. But he's also going to do it in a way that doesn't bother his donors. And that's what this is, right? Again, Hillary Clinton expected a coronation, got her ass handed to her in the swing states. Biden's campaign's not that stupid. They know that he needs progressives to win. They know they need people under 45. Now the question is, what are they going to do with it? What are they going to do to get that? And this, apparently they're going to try this unity commission, right? Or this unity task force, or these task forces. That's their solution to this. I think that this is Biden going through a song and dance, though. I think this is kabuki theater. I don't think it's going to really, get a lot of voters under 45. It might fool some people, but I'm incredibly skeptical. Just incredibly skeptical. So I understand. But look, as far as what we should do, progressives, I don't have an answer. We're stuck with the worst possible choices here. We have Tara Reade's allegations that are, massively problematic. But at the same time, you have Trump, who's arguably worse. And so you've got two people with massive problems, and we're stuck in 2016 all over again. What we need to do is, as a progressive movement, is we need to figure out a new plan. Right now, electoral politics and getting just a seat at the table is not enough. We had a seat at the table in 2016. See how that worked out, right? And so I don't know. We need a way to advance our policies without just working inside the system. As electoral politics is very, very difficult to get people to give up power. You have to take it. You have to literally take it from them. And so working with them in the system is not going to be, it's definitely not the end all be all, right? What we need to do is we need to work outside the system as well. And that takes organization. Now, right now, we can't do anything coronavirus, right? But once it's safe to go out, general strikes. We need a general strikes. We need to take to the streets. That's, of course, assuming Trump hasn't won and completely stripped out all of our rights to be able to do that. I don't know, but we need outside pressure. Again, I respect everybody on these task forces. I hope they do good. I know they're fighting hard to try to introduce progressive change from within the system, but we need something that's outside of electoral politics too. And that's going to take, again, massive mobilization and massive organization of progressives, of people who really want meaningful change. We've got to take to the streets when it's safe to do so, and show, the establishment that we do have power and that we will show up, not just for voting, but to hold you accountable. Hey guys, hopefully you enjoyed that free video. Now I'm going to have to ask you a favor. Between the demonetization and the YouTube algorithm messing around with view counts, etc., we're having a hard time adjusting to the new YouTube reality. which is where you guys come in. See, we have a Patreon, patreon.com/TYTNation, set up to help us rely on you guys, the viewers, instead of big corporate ads. Look, you know the show. You know how I'm not in favor of big corporations anyway. So help us transition away from relying on the ad model to pay the bills and sign up to be a patron, patreon.com/TYTNation. That goes a long way to help us keep the lights on. And you guys will know that you're supporting independent progressive media.